I think my success in talking to Christians, for example, correlates with both of our abilities in that conversation to ignore our confidence and to sort of treat everything as if it could be false. Because Hitchens was right that there is a lot of arrogance and certainty and violence in the history of religious thought, but let's not pretend that he didn't have a bit of confidence himself. I'm not sure. I think a lot of the time people say things like, I always read people who disagree with me, or I always, I put myself in positions where I debate people. And I always think to myself, like, do you really? I mean, do you mean that you like meet people who disagree with you and you have like a jousting match with them because you enjoy debate? Or do you mean that you've like actually sat with it? I'm sure a lot of people actually have, but I think it happens to varying degrees. And I think when you're watching something like a debate, it is clear to me that someone like Christopher is listening very carefully to what someone's saying and thinking about how to pick it apart. But I can't think of many examples of him listening in such a way as to say, okay, I'm going to consider that for a moment and see what I think about it. It's almost like a lot of it was sort of pre-prepared. And so I've kind of gone off debates a little bit.
Well, so have I.
Yeah.
I've gone off them completely, and I'm so glad to hear you say that. I'm not surprised. I felt that the so-called confrontational debate of the kind that I was invited to do, I didn't invite myself to do them at all.
Yeah.
I was thrust into that position, have serious defects.
Mm.
And one of them is cutting corners.
Yes. Yeah.
Not really listening to the other person and trying to win.
Yep.
When what I feel the best thing is to have a discussion. So for a long time now, I have asked, no debate, let's have a moderated discussion.
Sure.
And the ability to moderate is pretty rare, to moderate well between two people. And Justin is one of the good ones.
Yes.
Bringing people together is very good.
Yeah.
And you're a good one too, if I might say so. And I think one of the things you said a moment ago, I liked, actually, I hadn't heard it put that way before, that we ignore our confidence, that we're not coming into a discussion saying, look here, I know I'm right. We're saying, let's talk about the issue at stake. Let's present our case as best we could.
Yeah.
And have enough confidence in people who are watching or listening that they can make up their own mind.
Yeah, that's in many ways how I feel about this podcast. I've long since thought that the best way to do debates of the format, opening statement, rebuttal round.
Terrible.
I thought the best way of doing that would be to produce your opening statement, and then everyone goes away for a week. And then you come back and you do your opening statement, and everyone goes away for a week, and then you come back and you do your rebuttal. And if you want, you can then stitch the videos all together to make it easy to watch, because otherwise, what's the point in presenting ideas? It becomes more about who can think on the spot. It's an ego bout.
It's a test of many things other than the truth.
Yeah. You know what I think it is? I think it's a sport.
Yes.
And I've said this, listeners to this show will have heard me use this analogy all the time. I compare it to a boxing match.
Yes.
And the crucial thing about a boxing match is that it tells you who's the better boxer, but it doesn't tell you who the better fighter is.
No. And in this kind of verbal interchange, it doesn't tell you what the truth is.
Yeah, quite.
And that's another thing we've gone around it a bit, but from a very early age, I was very fortunate in the books I read as a boy. And they questioned my beliefs, you see, and they introduced me to a much wider world. Although I confess I tried to read books that were far too difficult for me too early, like Science in the Modern World by Alfred North Whitehead. But I had a group of people, 2 or 3 guys, and they were older than I was, so they went to university before I did.
Yeah.
And we used to read books and discuss them all the time. So although there was no debate, there was discussion, because I believed that by and large, we were interested in finding out the truth.
Yeah.
And I saw the danger of these debates right away, that they were a test of how fast you could think, how clever you were on your feet, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that got some ideas out into the open because that's the way things were done. But after I'd done 6 or so big debates, I felt, no, let's go into a moderated discussion. I remember an atheist professor in America, a very bright man, and he wrote to me afterwards and he said, "Thank you so much for not asking for a debate.
Mm.
The discussion is much better."
Yeah.
Because then it gives the public, it gets into the public space, the fact that these people have thought about these things and they're inviting you to think about them. Not they're inviting you to believe what they believe because they believe it and using their authority.
Yes.
But because the things in themselves carry a conviction.
Mm.
So I'm very much in the same line as that.
Well, debates are artificial and they're entertaining, but they are different from a discussion or a moderated discussion. And when I'm doing a podcast, I find it very difficult to temper between